Hello and welcome to another episode in my Warhammer 40k Conquest series. In this episode, we're going to have a quick look over the content of the delivery on the last weekend of May and also the dreaded opt-out letter. Ooh, stay tuned. Right guys, so we're just going to run straight through it, and as always this will be like wax lyrical, so I will be exploring each issue as I go along for the first time with you chaps and gals. So first of all, the opt-out letter. So this is for the Silver Templars book, 20 quid. Not bad, it's a book in its own right, with all its own fluff and short story and stuff, and it's hardback, so it's within reasonable bounds. You get enough time as well to opt out, so call them or whatever. There is a bit of noise online about it, but because of the opt-out system. But if you are following them on Facebook, which I do suggest you do, they actually mentioned a couple of months ago that this was coming near the end of the 30s issues sort of range. So yeah, it's not a big surprise or anything. They haven't left it last minute either, because they're giving you a full month to opt out, but they also let us know quite a few months in advance as well that it was going to happen. So that's that done. I'm definitely going to get it so I can show it off to you guys, like the art book and the what was it, the other thing? What was the other thing? I can't remember. Oh yeah, the premium boxes. How could I forget those? Because the glorified shoe boxes. But anyway, I digress. Let's crack open issue 35. Right, here's issue 35, and we start with this beautiful miniature, the Chaplain. And I got one of these already, but I kind of made a mess of making it, so it'd be great to have a second chance at it. But, look at the detail on that, hey? We've got a little base as well. So I mean, look, he's got a book of litanies. The shoulder pads are well detailed. You've got a plain shoulder pad as well, so you can do any chapter. So it's a box standard one that you can buy in the shop. And of course, you got your optional bits for the staff. So yeah, it's a really nice model, and it's one of my favourites that they've released for the Primaris line, certainly. So I'll put that to one side. So in issue 35, let me just take the light off there. Don't want that glaring too much, do we? So we have Chaplain Wargear, History of the Imperium, and Raven Guard Go to War. Alright, so we get our little introduction, and then we jump straight in with Chaplains. So Chaplains are the spiritual leaders of the Space Marines. They are mighty warrior priests who preserve the rites and rituals of their chapter and inspire their brethren to selfless acts of heroism. So these are really cool dudes. Designation: Chaplain. Duties: spiritual advisor, master of ritual. Battlefield role: inspirational leader. War gear: the Crozius Arcanum, Skull Helm, and Absolver Bolt Pistol. Let's dive into this a bit more. So we have a bit more information on here. And chapter cults. While Space Marine chapters offer praise and devotion to the Emperor of Mankind, they do not worship him as a god. They understand that despite his great power, the Emperor of Mankind is still a mortal man. The first Space Marine chapters were founded many centuries before the development of the Imperial cult and the Adeptus Ministorum, and they have never acknowledged the religious authority of the Ecclesiarchy. While the Adeptus Ministorum has grown in size and influence over the millennia, it has failed to sway the Space Marine beliefs, which remain as independent as ever. So I won't read all of that because I'll spoil your fun, but it's a really good little bit of information there, plenty of narrative. And then we dive into their war gear. So skeletal armor, just because, you know, it looks freaking cool. Crozius Arcanum, so this is their powered staff thing. You know, it's like a badge of office, but it whacks a punch. Holy Reliquaries, so, you know, probably some like sacred items from the chapter, could be anything. Tome of Litanies, and then the Absolver Bolt Pistol, which is a new type of bolt pistol for the Primaris. And then it goes into more detail on those specific items as well. Then we have Age of the Imperium, so a bit more on the history. So with the Horus Heresy receding ever further into the distant past, humanity finds itself shrouded in superstition and fear. The Emperor's dream of an enlightened Imperium fades as warfare continues to plague the galaxy. So you get the Age of Apostasy. Following the Nova Terra Following the Nova Terra Interregnum, a new age of dissent and power struggles erupted. It included both the Reign of Blood, a struggle between the ruling Ecclesiarch and the other High Lords of Terra, and the Plague of Unbelief, a galaxy-wide uprising of corrupt demagogues who only during the Horus Heresy had more blood being shed in internal strife. Wow, nice. So it was a very messy time. And then of course you have Age of Redemption, the Macarian Conquest, and we have the Waning, the Tyrannic Wars, and the Great Rift, and this brings you right into modern or current affairs. And then the Long War, so this is a bit about how the Traitor Legions still they still see themselves as at war from the original conflict of the Horus Heresy. And then we have Litany of Hatred, so this is a 40k battle, but I won't spoil any of it, but it looks like another great reads there following the Raven Guard, so can't wait to read that. And then we have our building section, so that's our standard stuff there. And then we have our painting of the Primaris Chaplain. So these are the paints that you would need, and off you pop, you get that going. Looks really cool. I do like the paint scheme of it as well. The black and the red really complement each other, certainly. So yeah, and then we have our mission. So a sacred defense is our mission 19. So the Shrine of Osimar looms over central Barakais. Atop the vast structure stands a colossal statue of Saint Osimar, a famous Corvosian warrior priest who was martyred during the Age of Apostasy. The Death Guard, keen to demoralize the enemy, have decided to corrupt the symbol of imperial strength. A small but powerful force has been mobilized in order to tear down the statue and befoul the shrine. So nice, that's always cool. And there we have our setup and everything like that, so sweet. And then we have our data sheet for the Primaris Chaplain. So on the data sheet for the Primaris Chaplain, we have the movement 6-inch, web skill 2+, ballistic skill 3+, strength and toughness is 4s, 5 wounds, so it's really tough. He's got 4 attacks, so he can really put out the damage. Leadership 10 and 3+ armor save. He's also got an Absolver Bolt Pistol, range 16, strength 5 minus 1 AP, so that's a pretty tough pistol. He has the Crozius Arcanum, the melee weapon, so he'll be at his own strength, and it's +1 strength. Okay, so it'll be strength 5 and hitting with minus 1 AP, but doing 2 damage for every successful hit, so he could potentially do 8 damage. And then of course he has his fragile crack grenade, and he has his they shall know no fear, Codex Discipline, and then we have his specific rules, Litanies of Hate, so you can re-roll failed hit rolls in a fight phase for friendly ultramarine units within 6 inches of this model. Sweet. And all friendly Ultramarine units within 6 inches of this model can use the chaplain's leadership instead of their own. So leadership 10, that's really good. And then the Rosarius, the model has a 4+ invulnerable save. So that's that halo that he has above him. So that's really important to have when he's getting hit by the hard hitters. And that's the end of that one. So, what do you think about that? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, issue 36 sees us have a bit of a break from building and focusing more on painting. And in this issue, we get a top up of Macaque Blue, because we're running out. And we get a new shade, Athonian Camo Shade. So this is perfect for doing all the shades on the greens. And Steel Legion Drab, so we can finally do some pouches and stuff. So let's put that to one side. In this issue, Ultramarines Chief Librarian Tigurius. We also have recess shading your models and new psychic powers. Let's dive right in. So, intro. Boom. Factions 1.5, a deadly evolution. Since the huge warp storms of the Age of Strife, the rate at which humans develop psychic powers has steadily increased. Psychic minds shine brightly through the warp, attracting demons, enslavers, and various other creatures that dwell within the Immaterium. The Emperor, recognizing the risk that such an epidemic posed, decided to act. He banned the use of psychic powers, save for those sanctioned by the Imperium itself. The ruler of every Imperial planet was instructed to set aside a levy of their young psychers for transport to Terra for the black ships. And then essentially they're sent there, and then they're tested to see if they can be weaponized or if they can be sacrificed as food for the Emperor so he can keep shining his astronomical beacon. Because of course, if any unguarded psyker or untrained psyker exists, there's that potential for an entity in the warp to take hold of their mind, corrupt them, and use them as a weapon. So we have sanctioned psychers, we have rogue psychers, they're the no-nos, the ones you want to look out for. And then you have chaos psychers, so these are the ones that have been fully corrupted. Moving on, we have more information on Death Guard, Chronicles of Virulence. So, Millennium 41, Time of Rotting. So we've got Tainted Trophies, the Rust Hound Rises, the Ship of Ill Omen, the Gorgon's Lair, alongside warbands of the Cleave, the Purge, and several other renegade forces. Typhus leads the First Plague Company in a shocking raid against the Iron Hands chapter planet, Medusa. The Deluge of Nevis, and you've got plenty of stuff to read there. So you go, look at that. A Future Befouled, the Utah Breach, the Great Bruin, Blighted Resurrection, the Doom of Hesp, Reefing God, Rust and Ruin, the Noxus Infected. I like to read them out because, let's face it, it's great alliteration there sometimes and little tongue twisters, and it's really good for my speech because my speech is bloody terrible lately. Anyway, Chief Librarian, see what I mean? Tongue twisters. Chief Librarian Tigurius. Tigurius is the Ultramarines' Chief Librarian and has always stood apart from his battle brothers. He is a figure of mystery, possessed of knowledge that goes far beyond the towering stacks of stored data and vast collections of scrolls stored within the chapter's ancient and storied librarium. So he's the Ultramarines' Master of Arcana abilities. He has prescience, depends how you want to pronounce that, psychic powers, leadership and strategy. War gear, the Rod of Tigurius, that's that fancy rod there. Hood of Hellfire, and the bolt pistol. Let's have a look here. So he also has a fancy banner. He has librarian keys. These 3 keys are used to unlock the Arcanum, where the Codex Astartes is stored. 2 of the keys are genetically and psychically linked to the bearer, and all 3 must be used to gain access. That's pretty good information there. And then we got the Hood of Fire and the Rod of Tigris. So again, I won't read everything, I won't spoil it. That's a very classic model there. That is like about 20 years old, if that. I think it might be a little bit older, maybe 25 at a stretch. Classic model. The detail still holds up. It's just, it looks a bit weird on the table though, because it's very much out of proportion. It's 2 scales behind, I believe. Anyway, we have still Legion Drab, our new paint to paint. So this will obviously go in the front part of your painting section in your folder, and shows you the bits and pieces. So you've got bits of wood, you got the fur. What else you got? You can start painting the maggots now. So little details here. So they drip drab all the painting guides and that, just so you don't get overwhelmed, which I find is quite cool. So quite a bit to do there. So this will keep you busy all week. And then we have recess shading as well. So you can see the difference before and after. It gives it a bit more depth there. So we'll go over that in another issue as well. But yeah, it looks really cool. So let's have a look here. Space Marines Faction Rules 1. Librarius Discipline. Before the battle, Space Marine Psychers can swap any power on their datasheet except for Smite, because Smite is universal, for 1 from the table below. You can roll a d6 or choose the power. So you got your various abilities here. Veil of Time, which if you pass, so you have to roll a charge. We've been over this in a previous episode, so I'll pop that up on the screen around here somewhere. So you can re-roll charge rolls and advance rolls for a unit, and it was fight first in the fight phase, even if they didn't charge. If the enemy has units charge or that have a similar ability, then alternate choosing units to fight with, starting with the player whose turn is taking first place. Cool. Might of Heroes, so this will give +1 strength, toughness and attack characteristics to a unit. Psychic Scourge, your opponent then, what's this, leadership roll, do a d6 and add the Psyker's leadership to the result. Your opponent then rolls a d6 and adds the leadership of the unit to the result. If the Psyker's total score is greater than the enemy unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. If it's equal to the enemy's score, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound, and if it's less, then nothing happens. Cool. Fury of the Ancients, you roll 3d6. Cool, that's a lot. And select a visible enemy model within that many inches of the Psyker. Draw an imaginary straight line between the two, and that model, each enemy unit that line passes over through suffers a mortal wound. Nice. So good for targeting crowded tables. Psychic Fortress. Select a friendly Adeptus Astartes unit, and at the start of the next psychic phase, that unit automatically passes morale tests, and you can roll a d6 each time it suffers a mortal wound from a psychic power, and on 4+ it ignores it. Sweet, that's quite cool. What else have we got? We have Null Zone. So what does it do? If manifested, then until the start of your next psychic phase, while they are within 6 inches of the Psyker, enemy models cannot take invulnerable saves and must halve the result of any psychic test that they may take. Rounding up. That's really handy as well, but you risk a lot because you're kind of throwing your Psyker in essentially combat to pull that off, but it can be very effective if you've got a combat focused tactic in mind. Okay, so we've got our examples there. Now we've got our Contagion Discipline. So this is for Death Guard Psychers. So I think I've been over this because I got it on the data cards in the premium box. So yeah, pretty cool stuff here. Quickly read over it again. So Miasma of Pestilence, unit within 18 inches of Psyker. Into the next psychic phase, your opponent must subtract 1 from all hit rolls on the target unit. Cool. Gift of Contagion. Select a visible enemy unit within 18 inches of Psyker. Roll a d3. Consult the table. All models in that unit suffer until the start of your next psychic phase. Huh. So Flybone Palsy is -1 attack. Muscular Atrophy is -1 strength, and Liquefying Ague or Ague, I'm not sure how you say it. I'll say Ague, is -1 toughness. Plague Wind, this one, visible enemy unit within 18 inches of the Psyker. Roll 1 dice for each model in that unit. That unit suffers a mortal wound for each roll of a 6. Damn. Blades of Putrefaction. What does this do? To the start of the next psychic phase, add 1 to all wound rolls made by that unit in the fight phase. Furthermore, any wound rolls of 7+, so that means if you roll a 6 and then add that 1 made for that unit in the fight phase with merely plague weapon, i.e. a weapon with the ability to reroll failed wounds or failed wound rolls of 1, inflict a mortal wound on the target in addition to any other damage. That's not bad at all. Protrusion Vitality. Select a visible friendly Death Guard infantry unit within 18 inches. Until the start of the next psychic phase, add 1 to the strength on that unit and the toughness as well. Nice. And then Curse of the Leper. What's this? Roll 7 dice. The closest visible enemy unit within 14 inches of the Psyker suffers a mortal wound for each roll that exceeds its toughness characteristic. Yeah, so very good, because most units are toughness 4, so you got like a 50-50. Is that right? Oh, it exceeds its toughness, so actually you got like a 1 in 3 chance of causing a mortal wound, but that's still really good odds. Alright, so got your examples of using those there. And we have mission 20, reach the evac point. So the battle for Corvan 2 has already cost many lives, but I won't read that bit. I don't want to spoil the narrative. But this bit, the can't get that bloody light right. There we go. Right, so the Ultramarines must bypass the Death Guard lines in order to reach the drop site and ensure their GNC cargo makes it back to the fleet. The Death Guard are expecting such an attempt and are prepared to push forward. They seek to intercept and steal the precious material for themselves. Awesome. What do you think about that issue? Let me know in the comments below. Alright, issue 37 gives you your second half of the Rise of Ruins. So again, just snap that in half and it's easier to store because it's quite a heavy kit. And yeah, you can do a fair bit to this. What you can do is, with all the spare chaosy bits that you got in your Chaos Rhino collection, you can add little bits to this set, and then that way you can have half that hasn't looked corrupted and half that has got corrupted, just to represent the influence of the Death Guard on the battlefield. So I might do a little quick video on that when I get round to those. So 37, Chronicles of Ultramar, Recess Shade your Ultramarines, Warlords in your game. Okay, so intro, then Death Guard Champions, Sorcerers. Death Guard Sorcerers are able to harness the power of the warp, calling down the pestilent blessings of Grandfather Nurgle upon ally and enemy alike. Very nasty, very nasty. So we've got a good bit of information and fluff there. Then Space Marine Chapters 2.2. By the way, I love this art, and it's to a really good book called No Fear, and it's about the betrayal between the Word Bearers and the Ultramarines when the Word Bearers sprung their trap on the Ultramarines, and it was really nasty, and you see how badass Guilliman is. So I will not spoil that book. You've got to read it, it's really good. So the Ultramarines battle record begins at the dawn of the Imperium. Rebute Guilliman rises to lead his sons in the Great Crusade. The Ultramarines recapture hundreds of worlds. Unfortunately, this period of enlightenment and human progress would soon be halted by betrayal and civil war. So M30 to M31, Dawn of the Imperium. Destined to lead victories beyond count, raising of Monarchia. So these are all very important events that happen within the book, and in a couple of books actually. So yeah, I won't spoil any of this because it's a really good read, and these little sections they explain a fair bit, but you have to read the book because it really does expand on it, and you really sort of root for so many different characters on different sides. It's brilliant. So I digress. Rise of Ruin build guide, so we know what we're doing there. How to paint section is exactly the same as the previous one, which is a shame. They haven't shown you a different paint scheme, but don't let that put you down. You can always paint it how you want. Just be creative with that. And then we have Space Marine details. So putting that new Steel Legion drab that you got from the previous issue onto sections on the Space Marines, and the Aphonian camo shade shading on Lieutenant Cassius's decals, and missed details that you might not have done. Backpack details, so look, they're showing you, yeah, you can paint around these edges. I already kind of did that actually, so cool, that's one less thing for me to do. Agrax Earth Shade, so where you can use that, and then recess shading, so this will be where you are using non-oil, I believe, on the armor to make that look nice. Does it actually say? Yeah, it's just telling you how to shade directly in the recesses rather than just slapping it over the whole entire thing. So there you go, non-oil and power armor, and Agrax Earth Shade on your red areas, and some other bits and pieces as well. So yeah, sweet. Warlords. So rules, your core rules 2. Every army in Warhammer 40,000 has a warlord, an overall leader that is picked before the battle. As the leaders of their armies, these heroes represent the players on the tabletop. If the warlord is a character, the model will gain a special ability called the warlord trait. Okay, so warlord traits. Here are 3 warlord traits for you to choose in your games. For now on, both players need to choose a warlord immediately before deploying. If a character is chosen, players can choose or roll on the chart for one of the warlord traits. The warlord immediately gains this new ability. So you have Legendary Fighter. You add 1 to the attack's characteristics until the end of the fight phase. Inspiring Leader, so add 1 to leadership. Or Tenacious Survivor. On a 6, the warlord avoids the damage and doesn't lose the wound. Okay. So you can always have fun and roll it for a bit of randomness, or a bit of fairness even if you both roll it. And then you got choosing your traits. So it's up to you what you like to use. We also have the Sky Shield landing pad. On the reverse of this page is an additional piece of printed scenery for you to use with this mission. For now, the Sky Shield landing pad has no additional rules, but it represents the Space Marine evacuation point for this issue's mission. Here we show you how to place the piece, so you place it in that corner. Symbols, and there it is. Just a nice piece, just to add wherever you wish. Then we have mission 21, evac incoming. So, is this going to be interesting? The Space Marines must reach the landing pad and hold it until the evacuation vessel arrives. The Death Guard are already closing in. If the heretics reach the pad first, they can stop the Space Marines from escaping and steal the gene seed being carried by the apothecary. So it's a race against time. Lots of shenanigans of fun to be had. And that's that. So let me know in the comments below. Just before I crack this one open, I didn't notice this before. Look at this! Looks like someone melted it or pressed it real hard. Luckily it's just missed the piece on the sprue, so no harm, no foul. There's no damage to the issue or anything. But that's unusual. Very unusual. Anyway, let's crack on with it. Issue 38. This is the final issue in our delivery, and we get the Plague Surgeon. So another awesome Death Guard character. Plenty of detail there. He's like a corrupted apothecary, and he's got his own surgeon gear. Look at that. It's like a surgeon saw, isn't it? That's nasty. Oh, can't wait to paint that bad boy up. Right, in this issue you actually get another map. So we're expanding our gaming to another battlefield. So it looks like a more industrial complex. So it's kind of a hint towards the kind of terrain we see. Future issues. So this for the next 10 issues, I assume. So that's pretty cool. And it's double-sided as always. So you got your regular side and then you got your battle damage side. So let's crack on with this issue. So Plague Surgeons, their war gear, and the Emperor. So intro. Plague Surgeons, Death Guard Champion 7. The Plague Surgeons were once apothecaries of the Death Guard Legion, committed to protecting the gene seed of their brothers. Now they are cruel, twisted versions of their former selves. So I'm guessing they like to experiment with the gene seed and really just be nasty, nasty bastards. The designation is Plague Surgeon. The specialisms is battlefield pathology, gene seed retrieval, and biological warfare. War gear includes a bale sword, that nasty thing, bolt pistol, and tainted Narthasium, which is that nasty thing there. Look at that! There's a screaming gob on his shoulder. How sick is that? Is that actually on the model? It's actually on the model. Look, it's a trapped plague bearer. Sweet. Okay, right, I'm done geeking out. So, infectious form. The bodies of Plague Surgeons are incubators for parasites and diseases. Every breath they exhale teems with infectious spores. Any foes foolish enough to engage a Plague Surgeon will soon be riven by plague and rife with infection. That's an awesome bit of sketching there, and again that's another John Blanche one. You can just tell by the style of it, but also his colour palette. He likes to use browns a lot and reds. So yeah, but this is a very old sketch. Got a bit on how they're gene seed thieves, so they like to steal the gene seed and do what they like with those. And then we have a bit on here on the war gear. So Plague Surgeon's medical equipment is covered in rust and drips with disgusting infectious fluid. Despite being in a state of decay and disrepair, the equipment is still more than capable of puncturing power armor and infecting friend and foe alike with foul diseases and putrid contagion. Nice. So we've got our demonic armor. We have a backpack. We have foul syringes, we have a barrel sword, and we have the tainted Narthasium. So we flick over and we get a bit more information on the gear there. I mean, that's just freaking cool though, right? And look at that, look, I mean, it's kind of half living tissue and half sword. It's nasty. And then you've got plenty of syringes with nasty stuff in it. Over here, factions number 1. So we've finally got our first page in the factions section. The Emperor. So, across the galaxy, citizens of the Imperium offer prayers to the God Emperor. Heretics curse his name, referring to him as the Corpse Emperor, a fitting title. The most famous and powerful human to have ever lived, the immortal Emperor of mankind once presided over a period of enlightenment and human progress, the likes of which the galaxy will never see again. The traitor Horus may have ended the Emperor's physical life, but his mind lives on, sustained by the stasis fields and psi fusion reactors of the Golden Throne. So yeah, essentially, if someone flicks the switch on that thing, he goes kaput. But no one knows if he goes kaput or if he's reborn within the warp, because his entity is attached to his physical body, which is kind of almost kept from decaying completely. It's been sitting there for 10,000 years, so who knows. The Emperor was interred in his Golden Throne 10,000 years ago. His mind is kept alive by his arcane workings. So originally it was just to help with communications and keeping tabs on the entire Imperium and access to the webway, because that was his great work. So they didn't have to rely on warp travel anymore. But yeah, it just ended up being a life support machine for him. So we've got a bit more on that. Sons of the Emperor, the Adeptus Astartes, with the exception of the Black Templars, are one of the few Imperial organisations that do not worship the Emperor as a god. Despite their knowledge of his immortality, they still greatly revere him as their father and of the Imperium. Offering praise to the Emperor is an important part of the rituals of many chapters. In the heat of battle, Space Marine chaplains can be heard offering praise to the glorious master of mankind. Nice little bit of information there. And then Factions 1 again, so this is continuing the information on the Emperor. So at the height of his power, the Emperor of mankind was an imposing figure. He was larger, stronger, and more powerful than even the greatest of the Primarchs. Clad in armour of shining gold and carrying a flaming sword imbued with his psychic might, his very presence was an inspiration enough to carry his armies to thousands of victories across the stars. That's a very ornate bit of armour there, and yeah, it's a very nice bit of artwork there. So plenty of information there in the past and the present. So, and of course his attributes as well, as the psychic warrior, the leader of men, and of course his gene size, the Primarch. So again, no spoilers. And then we've got our building section, the Plague Surgeon, and we have our painting section. So go through that step by step and have fun with that. Again, you can always just mix up the colours and do your own thing, but that's your paint scheme for this issue. Then we have Mission 22, Search and Rescue. The wreckage of the landing vessel is strewn across a city block. Space Marine and Death Guard forces are already converging on the area. The Death Guard aim to kill any survivors and steal the gene seed containers. The Space Marines must get to the survivors first and secure the shattered cargo. So another progress in the narrative, and it's really sort of heightening up the sense of urgency on both sides, you know. And yeah, I really do wish I could get time to play these, because it looks like great fun. Alright, moving on, we have a new data sheet for the Plague Surgeon. So 5-inch move, so again a bit slower than usual Space Marines, but that's cool. They make it up with toughness, so 3+ on the ballistic skill and weapon skill, strength 4, toughness 5, so extra tough. 4 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 8, 3+ save. He has a bolt pistol, so you strength 4, 1 damage, 12-inch range. Bale's sword, which is melee, so strength user, -3 AP, so nice to cut through that thick armor. You can reroll wounds for this weapon. Reroll wound rolls of 1. You could do the same for the blight grenade, which is grenade D6 with 3 strength and 1 damage, or you crack. And then we have disgustingly resilient, death to the false emperor. Then we have our tainted Narthasium, which is his specific rule. So you may reroll any disgustingly resilient rolls of 1 made for friendly Death Guard units within 3 inches of this model. And then Gene Seed Thief. Add 1 to all hit and win rolls made for this model in the fight phase when targeting Adeptus Astartes. Nice. Then on the final page, you actually have the crash site. That's pretty cool. So much like the landing pad in the previous issue, you want to hold on to these so you can do the missions whenever you want. I can't remember if you will actually end up with that set in the future issue. I'm not sure, because it was originally available in a starter kit, and then it never was available after that. So yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay, so on the back of issue 38, we see that the next issue we'll get the Primaris Captain. It's a pretty awesome model. And then after that, we also get some paints. Steel Legion Drab and Acadian Flesh Tone are the new ones. So we'll get to do something different there. And then the next 2 issues after that, 41 and 42, is going to be the Plague Burst Crawler. So that's a very awesome tank for the Plague Marines.
So let me know in the comments below what you think about all the issues. That's it for May's delivery, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. So see you in the next one. Cheers.